Have to? Okay.
No.
I'll go do something else.
Reading what other people. Yeah. Really? I don't remember the name of my group. Oh, it's just going to be us. Yeah. How are you? Hi, how are you? Good to see you. Long time no see. You bet. Are you on a committee or are you serious? I'm just going, I'm not changed. Great. Okay. I don't have anything right. Well, here's our group. I'll sit behind. Oh, I can sit next to you. Yeah. Who you doing?
Sia?
This is not the leaves, that's right here, but.
The whole thing is so perfect.
Which tree?
Yeah. And at first we were like, it's just two parties, each side, this is two people. Okay, let's do it. And then we voted Yeah. Memorized or you never? No,
Education. You're a
Yes.
ex-chair.
Ex-chair.
Actually, yeah, it's still,
That's good to tell somebody.
we're gonna share this slide. But it's fun. So I know I was sitting in there. Which one of them? Well, because it came in yesterday, so I read the whole but no, it's always great to hear. I think the only challenge is 25. So how was you actually? What's
Do we know if anyone's?
In case there's more than this.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you
Yeah.
do is these?
Oh.
Good
afternoon, Christine.
Here's what I'm gonna do. Here's what I'm
Yeah, we got you. Pretty well spot. I know. Yeah, right there. Okay.
You know what, that for you, I could also scoop somewhere else.
Well,
what I can do.
Are you gonna do this, digging up these five and these two?
Okay.
And I will
That'd be great, you
one.
can put next to the other environment. Hey Carol, how are you? Hey Stacy. And do you have an extra pen?
I sure do.
Thank you. I usually have one in my
Just take this
wallet.
one,
And,
I'm
oh,
sure
okay,
there's
thank
one
you.
down here.
Swap it.
Okay, quick, make your notes.
I am.
Make your notes, come on. Hi, Carol. Hello. I'm going to see you, Brad. Sorry. I just wanted to give you a bad time.
I'm like, what am I supposed to say? I'm like, okay, I'll just.
You got stand-up comedy. Come on. Lighten this goddamn thing
Isn't
up.
this one of those anxiety nightmare dreams that I have, right? It's like, I have to give a speech. I have to give a speech to a class that I didn't study for, That's what I figure. That's what I figure. It's like it's amongst friends.
Hello, goodbye.
So you survived. Well.
It was a chat. It was a chat. I've become the biggest Right.
So yeah, I mean, we tried to like.
Oh, that made all the difference. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is really good. You made it.
Enough.
Actually, so there's part the garden. What we found out is most likely. Yes, they think that we like to keep
So that's good. Oh yeah.
But it's made it all.
One of our challenges.
So many of them.
So we're kind of like,
We hold ours down before we start.
all right. And at the same time, well, that's what this is.
And, you know, like the week before Christmas. Really? Okay.
Were you happy with how it all turned out?
We did a good
My take on it, I speak for myself. I agree with the criteria. This is very successful. Otherwise, but then it became a great, there was a whole bunch of otherwise limited.
didn't realize
Everybody should. Some of it was flop.
Right.
So when you went back to compare the organization,
Some of the proposals we got were very different from the way that
so in that sense, I'm like, I've never had that feeling like that. It was always based on interest, something, and you're not criteria. You may not have been able to but these are very hard criteria. And very good with anything.
Can you prove to me that you're accountable and you have the
Yeah, but then
you can say you have it.
by the time you are part of the community, you're driven by the community, and not to have expertise. Or if you have the expertise, you're not right to know why. I mean, if you start up to maybe it might be
I'm sure we'll refine it.
From the art's perspective, art Very chic. I didn't have to take Oh, that's in this. Arrow. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's been a long 2 months. We're getting our acts together. Thank you.
But I'm also counting on you to. We all sitting
I like your shoes. Very cool.
They're very
But I thought, you know what? I need to get
Oh, you look so beautiful. You look, I mean, not that you always, my husband, when I write to him, oh, you look really way to go. Yes. I hope so. I told Eru I was kind of flossing and turning last night, trying to remember how to pronounce her last name. Just like, back, it was I'm glad you're here too. And thank you for all your coaching. Oh, good. Oh, good. I think it really helped, and I think it's going to make our presentation so much more interesting. Yes, and there's all the statistics. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you're here.
Is there someone there? Okay, great.
Marsha, I had to say hi, and I love your stockings. Those are so fun. Oh, okay. Well, I don't see you very often, so it's maybe me. Yeah.
Well, I was walking down the street with him one time, and his bicycle went by, and he's going by with us.
Oh, that's great.
I'm all the time.
Oh, that's wow. That was good. So, at the reception, I get to talk to you, right?
Well, I have a 5:30 at the exit. I know, it's like,
And I at least said
okay.
Let me just take
Hi, everyone. Go ahead, take your seats. Water, snacks, comfortable.
Oh my gosh.
And most importantly, turn your cell phones off. All right, everybody good? Well, welcome everyone. You made it through phase 1 and 2, and your work is almost done. Just a couple of 3-minute presentations, and you are good. I'm Christine Atkins, the Pooled Fund Grant Chair for this year. And with the rest of the team, Lorraine Del Prado and Susan Heckelad, I'd like to welcome you to the top 25. Couple of new things this year. First, it'll still be 3-minute presentations, as you know. At the end of all 3-minute presentations, there will be a 10-minute question at the end for just the final 15 moving forward. And the new part is you will text the questions to Aviva, and the number will come up here, and you can text.
Also on your agenda.
And on your agenda. And you can text anytime at all, because it's quiet, during the questions. And then at the end, people will go through them, and then the groups will answer. Well, thank you again for learning with us this year with the new criteria. And I look forward to hearing all of the top 25 with the new criteria lens. And also, I'd like to say, please stay after to celebrate ourselves, our hard work, and our friendships. Yep, thank you very much. So let's go.
All right, ladies, we'll kick it off with the Human Services Work Group. Come on up, Human Services.
Yeah.
You don't want any lawsuits, Sarah?
I just ran out to the street to find someone to do the presentation because I was worried we didn't have everybody, but we do now. I'm Sue Eastgard. I was the co-chair along with, Cheryl Huffman-Herzog, who was on spring break with her son. So let me do introductions of our marvelous committee. Kate Riley to my left, Katie Tenenberg, Laura Trainin, Christina Dawson, Ani Black, Gretchen Jacobson, a couple of other people not here, Julie Berg, Jackie Copson.
Carol down.
You do this to me today. Give me a heartache. Carol, no. All right, we're gonna start then. Kate, are you leading off?
I think someone's in front of me. I don't care.
Carol. Next to housing.
Carol.
Can you hear me out there?
Yeah.
Okay. We think about homelessness as a big city problem, a Seattle, San Francisco problem. But as our group learned from a proposal that we received from Next Step Housing, which is the largest provider of affordable housing in central Washington, homelessness is also a problem in Yakima. Who knew? Next Step builds and operates high-quality, clean and sober, affordable housing for people coming out of homelessness and for people whose household income is 30, 40, or 50% of the area median income and who really can't afford a place to live in a city with a 1.7, or 1.6 actually, vacancy rate. In addition to the 160 units of housing Next Step currently operates, they're building something now called the Bicycle Apartments in Yakima with 80 units of affordable housing. 40 of those units will be for homeless people, the majority of which are families as well as individuals. Another 24 will be for special needs populations, people who are developmentally disabled, adults just developmentally disabled, people with chronic mental illness, veterans, and then some just regular poor people, low-income people. And Next Step has relationships with organizations that support the special needs populations. Many, if not most, of the future residents of the Bicycle Apartments have had a history of drug or alcohol use, and they, in order to get in, they must be clean and sober for a year, and they must stay that way. Next Step's vision is for the kids, all kids, to grow up in a safe, stable community, and they have a 27-year history of achieving this. The key to the homeless residents of Bicycle Apartments staying or becoming stable and independent is support. And so the support to make sure that kids get into schools, to have medical and dental care, to get jobs, access job skills and other life skills that they need, and to stay clean and sober, is a homeless resident case manager. So to provide this crucial support, Next Step has asked Washington Women's Foundation for a 3-year grant to help pay for a homeless 24/7 care manager, and that's their model, and it works. Next Step is admirable in many ways. 45% of its residents are people of color. All of its staff were once homeless. And all of its staff have maintained sobriety. This homeless care management they've asked us to provide would ensure that the residents of Bicycle Apartment achieve success, and we'd like to help them do that. That's it.
Thank you.
We've seen in real time in the last few days the government put obstacles before asylum seekers who are attempting to exercise their legal rights in this country. Refugees Northwest, by contrast, provides an essential service that helps asylum seekers be successful in court. Someone seeking asylum status in Washington or in any state has a better chance in court if they've had an independent evaluation of their claim of health or mental health abuse. Refugees Northwest provides that service pro bono. They're the only one in the state that does that. And it gives an independent documentation of the claim for the court to rely on. When they began offering this service in 2015, they had 200 assessments. This year, they're anticipating close to 1,000. But therein is their problem. They're not staffed up to meet the need. What they need from us is funding for a coordinator, part-time coordinator position for 2 years, whose job would solely be scheduling these assessments. And that would free a senior staff member to recruit more people to the network. They want to have an additional 50 professionals in the network, and they want to be able to increase assessments by 20%. They're well set up to do this work. They've been providing services in King County and Pierce County for 40 years. Their staffing and leadership perfectly models our new funding criteria. 60% of the staff come from the client base, as does 40% of the leadership. Taken together, they speak 15 languages. Refugees Northwest, with our assistance, can provide leverage for this precious resource of these volunteers who can make a substantial difference in the lives of asylum seekers who are starting a new life in our country.
So, imagine you are a 26-year-old Latino who recently fled El Salvador to the U.S. due to violence and extreme poverty. You and your wife ended up in South King County. You both have a 4th grade education and speak very little English. You found temporary work from standing outside of Home Depot, but your boss has refused to pay you in full. You both live in fear and chronic anxiety, and you don't know where to turn. Drum roll. Enter Casa Latina. Casa Latina empowers low-wage Latino immigrants and refugees through employment, education, and community organizing. And their vision is for the Latino community to participate fully in the economy and the democracy of our country. And I say democracy with a big D. Their proposal specifically is to establish a worker center in South King County, which is based after the existing one in the Central District. The primary focus of the proposal is to connect people with day jobs, specifically day laborers and domestic workers. There are muchísimo reasons why we find Casa Latina, their proposal, compelling. Number one, Casa Latina provides a leg up. So they offer tools and opportunities to obtain work, which is the number one need of the Latino community. Number two, Casa Latina is responding to the need for closer services geographically. The Central District was formerly affordable, but due to gentrification, has forced a lot of the Latino community into other neighborhoods, notably South King County. Number three, Casa Latina is being led by the population they serve. 70% of the staff and the executive director are Latino, and they look for leadership within their client base. So they have clients who have been promoted to staff positions. Number four, Casa Latina fits our new grant criteria on all accounts, and they have a long history and successful track record. They've been around for over 24 years. And they're financially stable. Their revenues are rising steadily. This new proposal in South King County will replicate a known program that is already proven to be successful. And finally, considering the current situation at the southern border and the national political conversation, I ask you, is this an especially relevant, timely, and compelling proposal? We say yes, and give Casa Latina a wholehearted thumbs up. Go forth, Casa Latina, salir adelante.
Chief Seattle Club, it's been around since 1970 in the Pioneer Square. It's been an indispensable resource for Seattle's Native people. Last 2 years, their budget has tripled and their staff has doubled. And as a result of this increased demand, they're embarking on a very large capital campaign. The biggest change to their current program is that they're going to combat homelessness for the homeless, for homes. But this is really a project about empowerment. These are indigenous people helping their own Native people, and it's a very top, from the bottoms up organization. They're seeking a grant from us to help with construction costs. The club has already garnered gifts of support from well-established places like foundations like Gates and Medina. They plan to construct a new building adjacent to their lot, and they've also acquired the top 2 floors above their current space. Their new spaces will have 80 affordable housing units, and they will also have continuous substance abuse treatment, evaluation, advocacy, legal work. They'll have spaces for case management. They'll also have a social enterprise cafe and an art gallery. But most importantly, they'll continue to provide a place for belonging for Native people to practice their traditions and develop their curriculum, their community. There are many compelling reasons to support this project that embodies that criteria. The most obvious reason is that we live in their ancestral land. Seattle is named after a Native American. And we hear about the Me Too movement, we hear about Black Lives Matter, similar responses to immigrant groups, but there's something missing. We rarely hear about attention and support to Native people. A recent study found that 94% of Native women in Seattle reported they had been raped. They're also the highest poverty level of all minority groups. But shockingly, they're the least likely of minority groups to be accepted into King County housing. Their homeless rates are staggering. It's overdue for Seattle to have a legacy project, a landmark for Native Americans. Impressively, their architect will be John Paul Jones, who lives in Bainbridge, is a local elder, and he was also lead architect for the Smithsonian American Museum for American Indians. I hope you'll join us in supporting Chief Seattle Club to help Native Americans and Alaska Natives be present and relevant in today's society.
And there we are. Okay, I am happy to be presenting on community action of Skagit County. When most of us think of Skagit County, our minds go to tulips, good, very seasonal, and possibly the Anacortes Viaduct, but rarely do we think about the rest of the region, which is primarily agricultural, very rural, very dispersed. Large populations are moving into cities like Mount Vernon, Burlington, and Sedro-Woolley, but there are very limited resources. Community Action of Skagit County is currently the only major service provider in the area and attempts to provide a central hub for activities ranging from physical needs like food, housing, and transportation to job placement, financial education, and community events. Our committee was impressed and compelled by the organization's strong, lengthy history of service and commitment to this region. Their specific proposal related to the Equipping Families for Success initiative, which is a unique bilingual project integrating adult GED, financial literacy, employment, and child enrichment departments to help Skagit County residents move to economic and social stability. It's important to note that while Skagit County is approximately 60% white and 31% Latinx, over 90% of the adult education participants in the Skagit Community Action Program are Spanish-speaking, and over 70% are women. Thus, the committee believed the organization met our equity criteria and goals of prioritizing resources to underrepresented groups, especially given its rural location and lack of prior support. The committee was also compelled by the organization's financial need, as public budgets were recently cut and funding is no longer available for the kind of wraparound programming that the Equipping Families for Success initiative offers. All services provided through the initiative, including child enrichment and program evaluation surveys and other instruments, are offered in both Spanish and English, and participatory action research methods are used constantly to solicit participant feedback and make changes. The board of Skagit Community Action includes 1/3 public sector, 1/3 private, 1/3 low income. Their proposal was clear, financial audits and statements solid, staffing stable, program design careful and comprehensive, and narrative exceptional in its descriptions of root causes of poverty and regional needs. In conclusion, the committee was so impressed by the proposal that no cons were identified. Funding will be specifically designated to the initiative for 2 years with short and long-term goals of providing families everything they need to achieve economic stability in Skagit County. As we look forward to the site visit and expanding our understanding of regional needs and successes beyond and beneath the Tulip Trail, we believe that Skagit provides a rich, fertile soil foundation from which tulips can grow, and this organization provides residents resources with which they can create positive, sustainable change and self-sufficiency. We are proud that the Washington Women's Foundation is taking notice of their long, successful track record and considering them for pool grant support.
Nice job. We also had the help of Susan Hecla and Marian DeForest as advisors in phase 1 and phase 2. Thank you so much. So the two not going forward are the two presentations we did first. Next steps, housing and refugees Northwest. So the three, again, CASA, Chief Seattle, and Skagit Community Action are those that we're moving towards site visit. All right, we can breathe now.
Another party round for our human services group. Now delighted to bring up the health group who will give their 5 presentations.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rosalie Sisson, and I'm the co-leader of the health group, and here to introduce the team. We enjoyed working together very much, and we have, first of all, my co-leader, Ellen Luke. I want to point her up first. Raise your hand, Ellen. There she is. Terrific to work with. And then Laura Houston, Barbara Fielden, Stacy Courtney, Nancy Elliott, and Erica Washburn, and Diane Carroll. So the health group is going to announce the 5 organizations that met the new criteria and were well deserving and moving forward to the top 25. And we want to go ahead and announce, first of all, who the 3 are that are moving forward. And those 3 are Sierra Sisters, Elizabeth Gregory Home, and the Somali Health Board. The 2 that are not moving forward are Age Up and Pure Seattle. We're going to start our presentation with the 2 that are not moving forward to site visits, beginning with Barbara Fielden and Age Up. Show up any weeknight on the fields in southeast Seattle and you will find a laughing group of middle and high schoolers playing ultimate frisbee. This is all-girl everything ultimate program, or Age Up. Age Up serves South and use of color using ultimate frisbee as a tool to build a healthy community.
Louder. Yeah.
Many young women face increasing battles to stay engaged in sports as they get older under the burden of school, taking care of family, getting a job, as well as a lack of low-cost and culturally relevant opportunities in their neighborhoods. Age Up school-based ultimate teams address health inequities by offering over 100 hours of physical activity per season, as well as emotional skill building, strong peer networks, collaboration skills, and healthy competition. The teams also serve as a gateway to Age Up's intensive leadership programs. More on leadership programs in a second. A few statistics demonstrate their engagement in their community. Girls of color comprise 40% of their school teams, 65% of their leadership program participants, with 70% of their paid interns. The majority of those served are of Asian Pacific Island heritage. So, in addition to coaching Frisbee, Age Up is particularly skilled at engaging youth in long-term leadership development to address social injustices and oppression. Youth who join Age Up's programs are asked to think about, talk about, and respond to critical issues in their lives and communities. Age Up offers youth opportunities to learn and practice leadership skills and accept responsibility for and be held accountable for their leadership. Some of you may have been to the program that their young leaders did for us in Alaska. These programs have demonstrated effectiveness.
80% of the young people report the Age Up programming makes them feel more connected to their peers and community and more confident in making those connections. And 90% of the participants in the social justice programs participate in more than one program and return for multiple years. Age Up meets young people where they are through their sport and community, focusing on addressing two primary causes of health inequity: patriarchy and white supremacy. A love for ultimate frisbee becomes the lens through which Age Up helps youth develop critical analysis of social issues, leadership skills, and build a community across differences, as well as having fun playing frisbee.
Good afternoon. If you're a gay person, you might not have a job or a permanent home. You could be addicted to drugs, alcohol, or both. You might have a mental illness, and to make matters worse, you could have a chronic disease such as diabetes or HIV. You might be alienated from your family and friends. You feel like you're alone. In fact, you are alone. Alone, that is, until you have the opportunity to find Peer Seattle, which was formerly Seattle Area Support Group. Here, you finally find help to make change in your life. Peer Seattle offers 4 core services: peer counseling, support and educational groups, resource referrals, and peer employment connections. You will have weekly one-to-one peer coaching and encouragements for 26 weeks. Peer Seattle helps find treatment focused on health and wellness, recovery, and social connections. Their new project is a vocational oriented support, job readiness and search resources, bus and clothing vouchers, and it also provides internship opportunities. At Peer Seattle, the philosophy is not about us without us. All of their staff and volunteers first came to Peer Seattle for services. As you progress in recovery, there is opportunity to step into increasing roles of responsibility, first as a peer counselor or a group facilitator. Peer Seattle is working to deepen and enrich their holistic health services to the LGBT community and to expand their outreach beyond Capitol Hill to additional geographic areas and to other populations. They are an important grassroots organization providing vital services to a population that has long been targeted for discriminatory policies, oppression, and increasing amounts of individual acts of bias and hate crimes.
Bridget Hempstead is the executive director of Sierra Sisters. She is described as a charismatic fighter. She fights for her own health, the health of her community, and she fights for health equity for African Americans who have faced generations of racism and misinformation from the healthcare system. In 1996, she was told that she did not need a mammogram because breast cancer doesn't affect Black women. She insisted, and she got a mammogram, and she's alive today thanks to this insisting. Her physician called her to apologize and said, quote, "That is what we are taught in school." Well, since then, the guidelines have changed. Sierra is an African word meaning knowing. Sierra Sisters is guided by the belief that knowledge gives us power, and that this knowledge gives women the power to insist on making healthcare equitable for all women. So let's make sure we all know the facts. The lifetime risk of developing breast cancer is roughly the same for Black and white women, yet breast cancer mortality is 41% higher in Black women. Black women are significantly more likely to develop aggressive, advanced stage breast cancer. Black women face multiple barriers to breast cancer screening and treatment. These barriers include misinformation, a lack of insurance, not trusting the medical system, and a lifetime of experience with racial discrimination, injustice, and concentrated poverty. So what does Sierra Sisters do? Each year, more than 100 volunteers provide breast cancer education, support, and direct services. For 10 years, they have provided community wellness festivals in medically underserved areas of King County. They knock on over 1,000 doors, distribute health information, and provide approximately 500 people with on-site mammograms, diabetes screenings, and vision screenings. They have grown to offer this multiple times per year and are expanding to Pierce and Kitsap counties. They developed a community empowerment program where peer educators reach hundreds of women each year. With charisma, determination, and a shoestring budget, they have partnered with Kaiser Permanente, Swedish Medical Center, UW Medicine, and Seattle Cancer Care Alliance. In 2018, their director, Ms. Hempstead, received the Fred Hutch Community Health Trailblazer Award. Sierra Sisters' motto is, if we don't have the funds, we don't spend it. With our funding, Sierra Sisters will increase the number of people they serve per year, and they will develop an infrastructure to ensure that their organization is here to save lives for many decades to come.
Imagine you're a woman living in Seattle. Imagine you wear the wrong shoes. Your feet are your transportation, and you get too many steps in, and now your foot is injured. Imagine you have your foot examined, and they tell you to watch it, come back if it gets worse, your foot gets much worse. You're not sure what to do about it because you are homeless, and over the years, you've had bad experiences with hospitals, doctors, and other human service professionals. You're very leery. And to others, this looks like a lack of motivation to take care of yourself before things turn into an emergency. Elizabeth Gregory Home includes this story in her application. The woman they describe has diabetes. Her shoes have been ill-fitting and perpetually wet. But after a month of watching her foot, she returns to Elizabeth Gregory Home for help, showing them a deep wound in her foot. She has Medicaid insurance thanks to social workers at Elizabeth Gregory Home, and because Elizabeth Gregory Home has a partnership with a nearby clinic, she's seen that day. Her condition is so dire, she's admitted to the hospital for 3 days of IV antibiotics, and she's told that if she waited any longer, she may have lost her entire foot. What does Elizabeth Gregory Home do? They serve more than 600 homeless women each year, with almost 12,000 visits. They are proud to say they also work in prevention, since up to 75 of the women that they see each year are not homeless, but they're at risk for being homeless. Elizabeth Gregory Home provides wraparound health services to promote the health of homeless women. They understand that poor health can cause homelessness just as much as homelessness can cause poor health. They understand that being homeless hinders a woman's ability to meet essential needs that promote good health, such as healthy hygiene, nutrition, and essential rest, as well as the ability to access medical, mental, and dental health care. They understand the importance of feeling like you belong somewhere. They know every one of these women by name. They have a kitchen where women prepare their own meals. They offer showers and laundry facilities. They get it. They even take phone messages and mail for women who need to provide contact information for jobs, housing, healthcare, insurance, and other community services. Elizabeth Gregory Home ranks high in our new grant criteria. They serve an extremely vulnerable population, and they are highly accountable in that 2 of their staff members were previously homeless, and 80% of their volunteers are current or previous participants in the program. For 18 years, Elizabeth Gregory Home has operated as a day center, Monday through Friday. They recently expanded to opening on Sundays, which is a documented underserved day for homeless, Sundays. With funding from Washington Women's Foundation, Elizabeth Gregory Home can continue to expand its health services and keep its doors open for the 6th day of the week. We strongly support the work of Elizabeth Gregory Home.
I'm presenting about the Somali Health Board. Over 1 million Somalis have fled their war-torn country. 30,000 Somalis now live in South Seattle, with 3,000 new refugees arriving each year. Starting over in a new country with a new language and new customs. If navigating a grocery store is daunting to these new arrivals, imagine navigating our healthcare system. Thus, the Somali Health Board was created to address the lack of culturally sensitive healthcare services and to address the health disparities within this community. The mission of the Somali Health Board is to improve health outcomes through meaningful partnerships, educate health providers and community leaders, and to provide culturally appropriate and relevant services. 3 things are important to remember. This organization is for the people, of the people, and by the people, thus meeting our new criteria. The community they are serving is 100% first or second generation Somali immigrants, and 100% are people of color. The board of directors is primarily of Somali descent as well. The Somali Health Board is playing a leadership role in their community. In our community, they are now recognized as a model by other immigrant communities and communities of color who are adopting similar approaches to organize and disseminate information about health resources available and support. With a grant from the Communities of Opportunity, the Somali Health Board is playing a leadership role in organizing a community health board coalition. The coalition includes 8 additional ethnic groups who are following the Somali Health Board's lead in identifying problems within their communities, creating solutions, and mobilizing people to take action. Some of the services provided by the coalition are an annual health fair, monthly health clinics, baby well programs, vaccination information, healthy eating guidelines, increased knowledge about stroke, identification, CPR, and how to call 911. Developmental screening for autism too. The Somali Health Board is smart, effective, well-connected, strong, and fiscally responsible. The Somali Health Board has grown from being an all-volunteer organization to one with a small but professional staff. Their rapid growth has left the organization with underdeveloped internal systems. Our funds will be used to increase long-term sustainability by building capacity and funding, program evaluation technology, and fundraising systems, all things that are critical in reaching a new level of services. Simply put, their systems need to catch up with their growth. The Somali community has the wisdom, strength, and resilience to identify and address the significant health issues of our community and their community. Somali Health Board has clearly shown that when health professionals from marginalized communities organize, they can have real effects on health disparities.
All right, well, I learned some things. I don't know about you. Thank you again to our health work group. Pleased to welcome the environment group. Come on up, environment. Make sure you do have your phones on silent if you forgot. Twinklies. Oh, yeah. Let's try. You're welcome to hold it if you prefer, whatever you want.
Good afternoon. My name is Roberta Goodnow, and I was co-chair of the Environment Committee, along with Nicole Stelner, who was a tremendous mentor and leader as well. We have an extraordinary committee. In addition to their being very diligent, focused, and accepting and applying the new criteria, we had a couple of significant events that happened during the months that we met. a baby was born. We had an engagement. And we had a jaw-dropping event, in my opinion. One of our members was on the way to the emergency room with her son. She'd been called by the school. He apparently had a concussion. She stopped by our committee on the way to the ER with her son so that the organization that she was representing would have a fair hearing, if you will. Unbelievable. Now on to the introduction of our extraordinary committee. Rachel Knight, Nikki Wong, Carrie Hodges, Alyssa Coe, Rachel Placey. We have two Rachels, Rachel Placey, Rachel Knight, Eru Chandoro, Nicole Stelner, Jill McGovern, and Hollis Hill, as well as Sharon Hamill. Thank you all for serving on the committee. You all did a very, very terrific job. Before I move on, I would like to just let you know, before we move on with the presentations, I'd like to let you know of the 3 organizations that we are sending forward to site visits for you all. The first one is the Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition, Got Green, and Puget Sound Sage. The additional 2 that you'll hear from first are Nurturing Roots and the second one? Oh, yes, Women, Farms, and Food. How could I forget food? Anyway, we will first hear from Nurturing Roots, I believe, Carrie Hodges.
Thank you. Is this good?
Yeah.
Everybody awake still? Okay. Though Nurturing Roots will not be going forward today, it is my pleasure to tell you about them. Nurturing Roots is a grassroots organization digging deep to establish a community at the ground level. They are rooted since 2016 as an organic farm in South Beacon Hill, over a quarter acre. They have branched out with community programs sprouting the stems of education, empowerment, and activism. While doing so, they have obtained the fiscal sponsorship of the Rainier Valley Court to also nurture and grow their own board. Their mission is to educate community members on healthy food choices, provide access to fresh organic produce, and empower community members. They harvest not only fresh produce, but the fruits of self-sufficiency, pride, volunteerism, and activism. They are a community farm, but so much more. Think of them as providing a place where volunteers can shop for produce, shoe chickens, turn compost, plant and harvest organic produce, all while discussing the social justice bill they saw last night. Nurturing Roots volunteers and staff come directly from their community. South Beacon Hill is a community challenged with the negative impacts on health based on the environment one lives in. 77% of the residents identify as non-white. 22% receive SNAP food stamp programs. Healthy food choices would not be available here without Nurturing Roots. They leverage their reach with other local organizations such as ROAR, Roots of All Roads, to provide their affordable organic produce at weekly community markets. They host farm tours and weekly volunteer work days and engage with the community members of all ages and ethnic backgrounds. Programs such as a partnership with Africa Town provide teams with classes in cooking with herbs 101. They host farm tours, weekly volunteer work days, engage the community members of all ages and backgrounds. Programs are welcome and needed. Last year, they hosted farm-to-table dinners and movie nights centered on films on social issues, providing an opportunity for dialogue on issues relevant to their community. Nurturing Roots is an organization represented by community leaders of color with the expertise to garner community support and understand the diverse issues facing this community. Their founder, Naima Clark, gained her agricultural creds as a small business farmer at the Pike Place Market, and the board is diverse and community-centered. Nurturing Roots nurtures both mind and body, providing a community-centered engagement on social issues, organic produce, and educational opportunities. I hope you will consider dropping by their South Beacon Hill location to see this program for yourselves. Perhaps volunteer this spring and watch as this organization blossoms. Thank you.
Did you know that 37% of farmers in Washington state are women? The national average is 31%. And according to a grant application from the Washington State University Extension Program, there's a lack of educational opportunities for female farmers in Washington state. In 2005, a group of women from Douglas and Chelan counties decided to do something about that and launched the Women, Farms, and Food Project with an annual conference. The program has since evolved into a statewide conference with approximately 600 participants at over 200 locations attending via webinar, hence reaching women that didn't have access in the past. The conference provides education to female farmers in the areas of marketing, finance, and farm risk management. Follow-up workshops are held throughout the year, and feedback is provided by past participants that verify their farm bottom line has been improved and risk managed due to information learned at the conferences. The selection of conference speakers, practical advice, collaborative discussion, and networking opportunities has proven to be a successful learning model for women. The current Women, Farms, and Food Advisory Committee is made up of personnel from the Washington State University Extension Service, USDA, Farm Credit Service Bureau, and 2 women farm producers. No salaries are paid. The conference is self-sustaining and currently costs between $21,000 and $24,000, which is covered by donations and conference registrations. The grant they requested would be utilized over a 2-year period for both general operating and capacity building activities. They would like to add an additional 14 webinar training opportunities, and of those, a few would be offered in Spanish. The grant would also provide stipends for speakers, funds for additional conference materials and operating expenses, and contribute to the salaries for project and workshop management, as well as media and marketing personnel. With the grant, the advisory committee would expand and meet on a regular basis. The marketing and media committee would develop a 2-year plan, as would the webinar team. Mentoring would be provided, and the educational materials would be produced in both English and Spanish. In conclusion, the Women, Farms, and Food Project has been successful to date, and now they would like to build on their success by expanding their training programs and reach to educate more women farmers in Washington state. So thank you.
Maybe come around the other way. Sorry. The smallest.
Hi, everyone. So help me out here. I am very nervous. So does anyone like gifts? Please raise your hand. Thank you. Today, I'm going to tell you the many gifts that the Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition offers to its community. The Duwamish Basin was Seattle's industrial and commercial core area in the 1900s, and where a lot of cargo handling, storage, marine construction, ship and boat manufacturing, paper and metals fabrication, food processing, and a lot of other industrial operations are taking place. So as you can see, after 100 years of this,
it was designated as a Superfund site. I have no idea what that meant, so. That just means that it's a very hazardous waste site. Probably not healthy to live in that space. Today, I'm going to tell you why this organization is important. I'm going to tell you 3 things about them. I'm going to talk about racial equity, their track record, and urgency. The community is made up of 42% foreign born, 70% of people of color, and 71% who live below the federal poverty level. The life expectancy for the residents there are 8 years shorter than folks who live in the city of Seattle and King County area, and a full 13 years shorter than those who live in predominantly white neighborhoods in Seattle. I was born in Vietnam, and I was in refugee camp when I was age 5, and then immigrated over here when I was 6. So I feel like I can relate to the community that this organization serves, because not being able to speak the language and understand the culture and kind of being thrown in this space, and while trying to navigate this foreign system is scary. And that's what Duwamish River Cleanup means to the community there. They have staff who speak the language and who understand the culture, and they have staff who are working with the youth, as well as going into the homes to put in air filters and understanding the air quality and green cleaning. Track record, they're very effective. They're 18 years old, and we actually funded them back in 2010, but they've continued to grow and expand their services. And for a lot of nonprofits, there are a lot of expenses every year, and with expenses, you need fundraising to cover the cost. And every year, it starts all over again. So to be able to keep status quo, continue to grow and expand is very hard, and it takes a lot of strategic thinking. Finally, urgency. So after 18 years of talking, planning, and removing a lot of the contaminants, they are going to start construction dredging in 2020. And so this organization needs the support now more than ever, and I hope that they receive your full consideration.
I don't know where to stand. Wherever you want to do it, wherever you. All right. Hello, I'm Rachel, and obviously I work on the environment team. Before I started on the environment team, I kind of just thought it was this overarching looming thing that kind of affected us and kind of made some wildfires come. But this organization has taught me a lot about the environment, and I hope that you've learned a lot from us. The organization I'm talking about today is a small Seattle organization that's had a big impact on city issues. They advocated for the revenue from the carbon tax that was on the ballot last year to go towards renewable energy. And they also pushed for the revenue from the sweet and beverage tax to go to securing the food security gap. Got Green is the organization we're talking about. They're based in South Seattle, and they focus on activism and organizing the community towards fighting global warming and poverty at the same time. Their position is that the communities that are put in place have the ability to weather the storm of climate change. Being rooted in place means fair housing, dignified work, access to public transit, and healthy food. They use their tiered membership base of 8,000 people, whose involvement ranges from super activists to interested supporters. Their staff and board are very diverse and represent many community organizations. Of the many wins that Got Green has had over the last decade, I want to highlight 2 of them. First is the Fresh Bucks food program, which provides or reduces the food security gap by allowing SNAP benefits to be used at farmers markets. The other, which is led by the Young Leaders Committee, pushes the Green Jobs Initiative. So the idea that the youth and marginalized communities should have access
to green jobs was made public, or was made city policy in 2016, funded in 2018, and this year Got Green will launch the Green Pathways Internship Program due to this funding. This program provides access to living wage, career-bound jobs in the environmental sector. Looking ahead, Got Green is seeking funding to initiate community research that will surface the issues on which they will organize their organization over the next 5 years. They've also taken a leadership role on the New Green Deal and plan to focus their community action on pollution in the face of wildfires. They are 11 years old this year. Got Green has a proven track record of reducing disparities and inequity by transforming community input into city policy. Got Green is a boots on the ground organization that is ingrained in and is transforming their community.
We're always told to dream big, and Puget Sound Sage is doing just that by pursuing long-term, big impact solutions that can have positive effects on the communities for years to come. They're invested in growing communities where people of color, low-income families, and immigrants and refugees can all thrive. Through research and public policy, they amplify the voice of these communities to fight for a future where all people have an affordable place to live, a good job, a clean environment, and access to public transportation. One of the ways they do this is by investing in community-based research to help build the story and motivation for new policies. Having the right narrative is an important part of advocating for change. For example, in 2016, they co-led a community-based research report called Our People, Our Planet, Our Power. This set the foundational narrative for climate justice, and within 2 years, this report played a key role in the development of the City of Seattle's Environment and Equity Agenda. Puget Sound Sage also provides emerging leaders from low-income communities and communities of color the training they need to have a seat at decision-making tables. Their Community Leadership Institute is a 6-month fellowship that trains these leaders in issues such as housing, land use, transit, climate, and economic development. Their South Core Coalition has also been influential in multiple citywide and countywide campaigns, including winning legislation for mandatory housing affordability and ensuring the inclusion of Graham Street Station and Sound Transit 3. Puget Sound Sage recognizes that despite all their accomplishments so far, that the playing field is constantly changing with negative implications for women, people of color, and our environment. To effectively consider these rapidly changing factors, they want to be more forward-thinking and less reactionary, and this takes time. So they would like to leverage our grant to invest in building a 30-year regional policy that centers around building an equitable and environmentally just future. They want to invest in more research and partner with more local organizations and gather the resources needed to help plant the seeds for building a narrative that can drive the next chapter of innovative policy solutions. They also hope to develop a regional power map, and this would describe who owns the region, whose money is moving which political priorities, and who are the large players exacerbating regional inequality and displacement of underserved communities. This map would help them pick strategic campaigns to invest in moving forward. Puget Sound Sage has proven that they can produce results, and they have the expertise and the financial and organizational capacity to take on this challenge. We need organizations of different strategies and scopes to effectively address issues like environmental injustice and inequity. Immediate relief for the community is important, but long-term forward-thinking change requires different strategies, new ideas, and bold, calculated risks. With this proposal, Puget Sound Sage hopes to position themselves to have the foresight and big picture vision that's critical to long-term transformational change. Thank you.
Thank you all. On behalf of our committee, I would also like to thank Lorraine Del Prado, who attended all of our meetings, our advisor, for many questions, as well as our financial advisor, and we have one member who is not able to join us today, Rosemary Dunkel.
Thank you so much. Another round. Well, just more. Okay, everyone, we have 2 more groups to hear from. I'd like you to take your left hand Stretch it to your right. All right, that's not good. Right now, let's take our right, we're gonna even it up. Right hand, stretch it to your left. I hope people on the live stream are doing this too. Okay, that felt good. Ready for some more learning? Okay, then it is my pleasure to bring up the one and only education group. Come on up, education.
All right, we are on a first name basis here. So I am Ann, and I was privileged to have a great co-chair in Catherine. And this is most of our committee: Linda, Brooke, Katie, Carolyn, Allison, Ann, Rochelle, and Beth. And we are missing Maki, Amy, and Cindy today. And thanks also to Susan Barley, who was our advisor. And Amy was on our committee and also served as a consultant. After much discussion, the three wonderful projects going on are Denise Louie, Carlos Munoz, and Anilu. So, starting with these.
This is the Education Committee, and I ask you to remember that education is the great equalizer, opening doors of opportunity for everyone. The Equity in Education Coalition believes the following things, and if you agree, I'd ask you to raise your hand. Kids of color are not born inherently less likely to succeed in school. Kids of color are born just as capable as white kids. So why is it that by 8th grade, only 27% of Black kids perform math at grade level? The Equity in Education Coalition strives to understand and to confront the root causes of the systemic inequities in the educational system. And they do this in two ways that I'm going to talk about. First, mobilizing communities of color and empowering members of the community of color to identify what they call opportunity gaps that result in the achievement gaps for this population. They have monthly lunch and learn events where the community of color members discuss along with expert panelists who they invite in to identify issues that affect the kids of color and to propose solutions. For example, the lack of diversity in the teacher workforce. What's behind all that was one of their lunch and learns. How does it affect the little kids that don't see a person of color leading the classroom? Then they strive to bridge these gaps by advocating and lobbying for systemic changes. For example, a House bill on extreme school discipline outlining suspension and expulsion of kindergartners, first graders and second graders. They look at the historical reasons for the inequities in education, starting with understandable until the Supreme Court said, separate is inherently unequal. The housing discrimination they teach people about, why we have white communities with affluent schools and affluent neighborhoods and disadvantaged schools and neighborhoods. And based on local levies, they don't have the same money. The McCleary decision in 2012 was new and changes this, calling for ample funding for all state schools without regard to local levies, which discriminate. EEC envisions a world where a child's success is no longer predicted by race, zip code, or family income.
Friends of the Children Seattle is another great organization that advanced to the proposal round among many organizations that we looked at in the education group. It's a mentoring program that identifies youth ages 5 and 6 that have experienced trauma, poverty, transition, and challenges. Their goal is to break the cycle of poverty, violence, and prevent teen pregnancy, school dropout, and criminal activity. Friends of the Children Seattle commits 12 and a half years from kindergarten to graduation, no matter what. They employ professional salaried mentors which guide youth, spending an average of 15.6 intentional hours per month per child. Half that time is focused on academics. They're a coach, the mentor becomes a coach, motivator, and advocate for each child. Mentors make long-term commitments to the program. There's an average of 5.5 years retention rate, which allows for a steady presence in each child's life. It's a local chapter of a national organization that was started in Portland, Oregon, by a man who became financially successful despite many obstacles he had in his childhood. He used his experiences to create this mentoring model. They're right now working on a 3-year expansion of their team program. In the first year, they're looking to increase to 56 teams, 75 teams in the second year, and 98 teams in the third year. The money would go for oversight and program quality and evaluation, salaries and professional development for their mentors, as well as additional academic support and college prep programming. This organization is compelling for many reasons. They have robust evaluation procedures. They appear to be adjusting their program to meet the needs of each child. One example of that is that they just finished their strategic planning process, which included youth and family voices. And now they're looking for additional space on the on the I-5 corridor as more of their families move south because of increased pricing in the region. This will allow them to more effectively meet that 12.5-year commitment to the children. They also have documented success. 94% of enrolled youth have avoided early parenthood, and that's despite 65% of the youth being born to a mother that became a parent as a teen. They also have 86% of their program graduates have either graduated high school or obtained a GED. This is 7% higher than the state average and 16% higher than the state average for Black youth. These are impressive statistics for children that have many obstacles in their path to success. I'll leave you with one final bit of information about them. Harvard Business School Association of Oregon conducted a study and found that for every $1 spent on this organization, $7 is saved by the community.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Carlton, and it is my pleasure to tell you why the Education Committee found the Denise Louie Education Center proposal and mission so compelling to make it a finalist for a site visit. Denise Louie serves the low-income, immigrant, refugee, and homeless community by providing high-quality early learning services. Their mission is to address and eliminate the achievement gap by the time a child reaches kindergarten. Denise Louie was founded 40 years ago and are extended across the 3 locations, currently serving 600 to serve an additional 300 children and guardians. They have the expertise and leadership and have built robust accountability measures, including creating a policy council consisting of 27 parents and guardians who meet with the board on a monthly basis to discuss hiring, policy, and budget issues. Their leadership team is 100% people of color, and their board is represented by 70% people of color. The program staff assess infants, toddlers, and preschoolers often on a quarterly basis, and they measure against standard benchmarks and continually exceed national averages. 10% of the staff are former members of the program, and 70% of the staff are multilingual. And this makes their learning environment just that much more welcoming, but also community networking more possible. So every parent wants their child to succeed, or I'd like to say almost every parent would like their child to succeed. That's why we're here. This issue runs deep to my heart. I have a child that's adopted from Nepal. She is smart, bright, confident, whip smart, full of moxie. And this is a kid that can go far. She's full of potential. And I can't help but to think what life for her would have been like had it turned out different. This is exactly Denise and Louie's primary mission. They are all about creating that potential early on in life. They understand that if the achievement gaps are not eliminated early, it just makes learning and navigating America's systems just that much more tough. And that further exacerbates society's inequities. This grant is to expand services to the Mercy Magnuson Early Learning Center in North Seattle. It's also to help train the staff and parents and guardians to further advocate for their children and their families. There's a lot of need in Washington with many deserving organizations. Denise Louie is an organization that is about building community, early learning. They deliver, they're providing community, builds confidence, and delivers early learning. And they're making a real impact. And so those that they serve can really have that potential. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm here to share just a few reasons why our committee so enthusiastically recommended Para Los Niños. Para Los Niños has been working with Latino families in Highline Public School District to elevate community voices and advocate for Latino children and families since 2003. When their organization began, 1/3 of Highline Public School District students were Latino. And yet there were no programs or services focusing specifically on Latino students or parents. In the 15 years since their forming, Para Los Niños has engaged over 10,000 families and formed powerful partnerships with Highline Public School System. Washington Women's Foundation funds would allow Para Los Niños to serve 350 low-income Latino children and 150 immigrant parents through their bilingual and bicultural education program. Our funds would support specifically the Aprendemos Juntos after-school program, developed with the goal of improving academic performance of children while building literacy, leadership, and advocacy skills of parents. In addition to Aprendemos Juntos, Para Los Niños also operates the Parent Leadership Academy, which is a year-long investment in leadership development, personal empowerment, and community advocacy for parents, and 2 summer-long programs for pre-K through 6th grade students. Para Los Niños is the perfect partner organization as we work together to pioneer our new equity-focused criteria for the first time. Their results demonstrate years of expertise in reducing educational disparities and shifting systems of inequity. Their programs give power, voice, and leadership to communities impacted by intersecting injustice due to race, gender, and immigration status. Their leadership is 100% people of color, mostly women, and their staff include many participants who have grown up through the organization as leaders. Most of us in this room can think of a time when we've been asked to navigate a system on behalf of someone we care about, to navigate the school system on behalf of our children, the medical system on behalf of our parents. Advocating for ones we love is challenging under the best of circumstances. We likely took for granted the fact that we speak the same language, we know our rights, we have general familiarity with the systems. Every parent should feel empowered and confident to advocate on behalf of their children's education, and Para Los Niños works to ensure that barriers facing Latino immigrant parents do not get in the way of ensuring success for every child. Today, as a direct result of their program, school communication is sent in both Spanish and English. Bilingual outreach workers from the Latino community work directly with parents, and graduates of their year-long Leadership Institute serve on the advisory board, of the school superintendent and in King County Open Spaces Equity Cabinet and routinely testified to the King County Council. Para Latinos is an organization led for and by the Latino immigrant community and works to empower the entire Latino family. And we're excited to move them to the next phase of the organization.
And the alphabet here. All right, so today we're going to talk about Unloop. It's a very young organization and it's focusing on empowering prison inmates with competitive and valuable skills in order to find living wage employment in the Seattle tech industry. Their main academy program is a 1-year, 550-hour accredited certification program in coding, and it's delivered with local community colleges. So they have professional instructors from both Tacoma and Edmonds community colleges come in and teach approximately 80 students each year in the certification program. And they also do these one-day seminars that reach about 120 students throughout the year. Their ED is informed by her direct experience with incarceration and marginalization from society and the formal economy. They recruit people with records for their board and staff to ensure that high-level decisions are guided by the interests of the people that they are serving. They currently serve students that are incarcerated within the Washington Correction Center for Women down in Gig Harbor and the Monroe Correctional Complex for men. They specifically focus on inmates that have 7 years or less remaining on their sentences. Due to limitations within the prison environment, computer time and internet access is very restricted. Students have to be resourceful. Many spend time learning how to code via textbook, and they also practice coding outside of the classroom with pencil and paper. In 1994, I don't know if most people are aware, but Congress actually eliminated all federal funding for college and prison. And today there's only 6% nationally spent on programming within prisons, and that includes education. That's all programming. So studies conducted over the past 20 years have unanimously indicated that higher ed in prison programs reduces recidivism, it translates into reductions in crime, it saves taxpayers, and long-term contributions to safety and well-being of communities to which formerly incarcerated people will return. They are requesting funding for their newly created in-house studio internship program. This is designed to provide this bridge experience for newly released students. It's an integrated model. It combines higher ed with career readiness and networking for employment opportunities within the tech industry. Interns get hands-on practice and hours coding on real-life projects or classroom work. This will fund 10 6-month internships in their program. This will complete the end-to-end pathway and increase the rate of employment for more of their graduates. The request is compelling because funding the program completes this final step in a student's educational pathway. It gives them real-world hands-on experience, coding hours, and other activities that are unable to access within the prison environment. It eases their entrance back into their local community and provides career prep and some social emotional support during a major life transition.
Thank you to the Education Committee. I'm feeling inspired. All right, we have one last group to hear from, the Arts and Culture Group. Here we have Cindy to take us away.
And away we go. So wonderful group of work group members. We started with 61 letters of interest, and I just want to introduce them to you. Marcia Peckman, Susan Arnold-Aldea, Ginny Trethaway, Diane Altman-Dovtok, Kit Crane, Lil Shaughnessy, my co-chair, Stephanie Toothman, Carol Ottenberg, thank you, Lynn Mao, and Ava Ball. So thank you, everyone. We have 3 organizations that are moving forward to site visit. Those are Coyote Central, the Delridge Neighborhood Development Association, and Maury's Place for the Arts. Not moving forward are Arts Corps and the Seattle Repertory Jazz Orchestra. And here to tell you about Arts Corps is Marcia.
Where does the appreciation for the arts come from? For some of us, it came at home. Our parents introduced us to it. For some, it came through school or an after-school program. And I bet if you close your eyes, you can still smell the glue, the paint, and the fresh clay in the art room. Or you can hear the squeak of the sax or the bleat of the trumpet from the music room. Or you remember that folk song that you belted out at the assembly or in choir. Some of you may remember standing behind the curtain waiting for your cue. Some of you might remember learning how to dance with a partner. Now for me, it certainly was not hip hop. It was more like square dancing in the Virginia Rita. But those moments that we can remember are being stripped away. Our public schools and our community centers, as funding becomes more scarce, do not provide those wonderful moments where we develop appreciation. We focused on the basics, leaving to the PTAs and private groups to fill the need to build the foundation for joy in the arts. The hardest hit are disadvantaged youth and children of color. Arts Corps has stepped up to fill that void. Their mission is to ignite the creative power of young people and battle racial and social injustice. They have provided culturally relevant artists and residents, trained teachers, sponsored school programs, and leadership opportunities for youth since 2000. They annually serve 2,800 students at 40 locations in South Seattle and South King County. Now, the organization partners with elementary, middle, high school, community centers, low-income housing sites, and crisis centers to provide art education. 82% of the students participating are students of color. With the receipt of a $2 million 4-year federal grant, they experienced explosive growth. They grew 100%. And with that grant concluded, they're looking for replacement funds to shore up their infrastructure and increase staff funding. They want to work on a new strategic plan to be launched in the next 6 months. Art Corps has a diverse staff, artisan board. They include their alumni as well as the voice of youth in designing programs. They charge between $67 and $100 an hour for their services in some of the programs. And the students served must be part of the partnering organization in order to receive these arts trainings. The largest challenge ahead appears to be sustaining the size and programming without the federal grant that spurred their growth.
A perk of joining the Arts and Culture Grant Review Group is not only the opportunity to work side by side with intelligent and interesting women, but also to find out about amazing art and culture activities in our own town. The group I will introduce to you today is one such jewel. It has been one of the pillars of jazz, recipient of numerous awards that have put Seattle on the jazz map, and that enriches our lives with amazing music. This group, Seattle Repertory Jazz Orchestra, has submitted to us a grant to support their outreach education program called Jazz Scars. To give you some background, Seattle Repertory Jazz Orchestra is a big band jazz ensemble composed of 17 of the most prominent jazz soloists and band leaders in the greater Seattle area. For the last 24 years, they have been performing 6 concerts per season and inviting amazing international jazz performers to play with them. 5 of the orchestra members are outstanding educators at the college and high school level. By the early 2000s, they had brought 2 of Seattle's high school jazz bands to national prominence. The immense disparity in music education within the Seattle School District brought SRJO to start Jazz Scholars. They wanted to nourish the latent student talent in truly underserved schools and offer them the opportunities for growth and pride that they had witnessed firsthand with more privileged students. Since 2007, Jazz Scholars has employed professional musicians to coach students, offer jazz technique and instrumental music lessons, and provide free instruments for students who cannot afford their own. Currently, Jazz Scholars serve hundreds of low-income students and students of color in 18 South and Southwest Seattle schools. Jazz Scholar programs are free to the students and the school. They're funded by fundraising concerts performed by the Jazz Orchestra, grants, and individual contributions. Our grant was requested to be funded over a period of 3 years and would be used to hire a half-time staff person to replace the volunteer founder and director of Jazz Scholars. This new part-time staff person would extend the program to more schools, start a summer camp, and energize fundraising efforts. The city of Seattle is honored to be home to this jazz orchestra that has not only enriched our musical life, but has also trained new generation of jazz musicians and energized the lives of so many children. I, for one, have bought tickets to their next performance. I hope to see you there.
What do businesses do when they are so successful that customers are waitlisted for services? Well, they expand and open a new location. Nonprofits follow this format too. And when your service is providing top quality art classes to hundreds of youth, especially youth of color, then expansion is an exciting thing for arts education in our city. Coyote Central has been providing year-round youth arts programming in Seattle for 30 years. Middle school students have opportunities to explore their talents with professional furniture makers, fashion designers, chefs, filmmakers, music producers, and countless other creative people in 20-hour hands-on courses. The decision to locate their first campus in the Multicultural Central District illustrates Coyote's commitment to provide easy access for youth of color. They've achieved impressive participation numbers. 60% people of color during the school year, 45% in summer, many receive full or partial scholarships. Their current campus is bursting at the seams with wait lists of over 850 registrants every summer for the past 4 years. They wish to use our grant to support their capital campaign for a second location. Perhaps surprisingly, they've chosen to expand northward to Lake City. Their research shows that Lake City presently encompasses some of the most diverse neighborhoods in the city, yet has little or no youth arts programming. The new site will be named Coyote North. Planning and successfully completing a capital campaign of over $2 million takes great skill and determination. Luckily, the current ED, Claudia Stell, also headed the previous capital campaign to purchase Coyote Central in 2010. Their financial stewardship over the past decade has built a large cash reserve of $700,000. So when the ideal building and location in Lake City became available last fall, Coyote was able to move quickly with the purchase down payment. Now, the remodeling for art spaces takes center stage as excitement builds. In addition to physical space, the launch of Coyote North has required laying the groundwork for integrating into a new neighborhood. Meeting with locals to ascertain their hopes and concerns is a crucial early step.
Partnerships with local cultural organizations and public schools is already underway, recognizing the significance of Latino, East African, Asian, and Eastern European immigrant populations in the neighborhood. Coyote North hopes to open its doors as early as fall of this year, so an infusion of funds in late summer will be crucial to meet this ambitious target. We stand behind you, Coyote North.
This is a capital request for critical improvements to Youngstown Cultural Arts Center, a National Register historic building located in the richly diverse and historically underserved Delridge neighborhood in Southwest Seattle. A public school for 80 years, Youngstown is a multi-purpose property, a vibrant hub of programs and activities responding to a multitude of community needs. It houses an alternative public high school for seriously at-risk teens, leases office space to arts and culture groups that you know, such as Art Corps, Totem Star, and Real Girls. It offers venues for community conversations on race and social justice. It has a theater, library, kitchen, classrooms, recording studio, and rehearsal rooms for teens. Last but not least, the top floors provide 36 low-income live-work spaces for fledgling artists. So who lives in Delridge? 47% of its 30,000 residents are people of color. 40% live at or below federal poverty guidelines. Delridge has more youth under age 18 than any other Seattle neighborhood, and we know what that kind of implies. DNDA operates 7 low-income housing properties throughout the Delridge neighborhood. More than 45,000 people come to Youngstown annually. The south end of this 100-year-old building has settled and sloped to the point of jeopardizing occupancy. The campaign to save it is appropriately tagged Elevate Youngstown. A needs assessment and work plan were prepared over several years and a $2 million capital campaign launched. Seattle's Office of Housing has already committed $500,000 toward the project. Quiet phase fundraising is ongoing, and an experienced development director has been hired. The public phase of the campaign debuts in the fall. They hope to start work in the summer, proceed in phases to minimize disruption, and complete the work and campaign in 2021. Their funding request fits all of our criteria. First, a highly diverse and disadvantaged community it serves. Second, an established and stable organization with a track record of success in building community and pursuing equitable and inclusive outcomes. And third, responding to the voiced needs of the community with new programs, recognizing and prioritizing the needs of children and teens, broad-based partnerships, and welcoming new neighbors. We are impressed with the efficiency of serving so many needs of an underserved, diverse, and multi-generational community under one historic roof. Thank you.
I'm the last speaker. I drew the short straw. We're delighted to share with you a bit of story about Mari's Place for the Arts. It's a very small organization compared to others you've heard about today. Annual budget of less than $70,000. All volunteer, too. Founded by a woman named Mary Toes, an Hispanic immigrant. Her mission, to serve vulnerable children and teens with arts and culture programs. Many students come from immigrant families. Many are Hispanic.
Some have undocumented parents. Located in Everett, Murray's is the only place in Snohomish County offering after-school programs like these. It is a safe and accepting environment for kids who might meet discrimination in some form on any given day of their young lives. Young adults, some of them graduates of Murray's Place programs, teach classes in art, music, dance. So do some parents. A teen named Bianca, once a student at Murray's Place and a volunteer around the office, taught dance, and then recruited her mother to teach art, both of them discovering new attitudes of self-confidence and achievement. Bianca is now a junior at the UW, majoring in business, first in her family to even think of attending college. Mary herself, founding executive director, has been a selfless volunteer for 8 years, making large personal and financial sacrifices along the way. She's become an inspiration to her community and beyond. You can read on your sheet of her awards from the City of Everett, County of Snohomish, and indeed the State of Washington. Our grant would help fund a program director to relieve some of Mary's daily workload and free her up to further community contacts. Mary herself would receive a half-time salary. Contracting with a donor development specialist is also in the plan. Thus, our money would help build continuity and consistency for current and future programs. What do we find compelling about this organization? Let me count the ways. It's run by dedicated volunteers and has proved highly successful, with 800 children a year enrolled in weekly programs. The executive director is a role model to her community. Murray's Place is doing unique work in Snohomish County. Our grant would have a big impact on the organization and the community it serves. Murray's Place strongly exemplifies our new grant criteria: service by a marginalized immigrant community to its own community, a community where families still struggle against displays of discrimination, prejudice, and scorn.
Wasn't that fun? Thank you to my great work group committee, and also just thanks to Christine Atkins, who is one of our grant leaders, Marion DeForest, and to Kathy Edwards, who did some wonderful financial evaluations for us.
All right. I, for one, can't wait for site visits. How about you? Oh my goodness. We get to go meet all these, 15 of these organizations. So I'm going to take a look and see what questions you've texted to me. If you have something percolating, here's the numbers also on your agenda. I can't take a phone call, so just make sure it's a text message. Here, Mr. Call. And I'm going to try and group them together by type of organization. So we'll start, I think, with the education group, if that's okay. We'll have a whole group stand, and you'll get to answer all these questions. And I might bring the mic over to you so we can get it easy to hear. So a question about Unloop. Who will manage and implement the pilot program, and students? Who would like to answer?
That is a great site visit question. We did not quite have that level of detail. They do have a developer that has 2 students per year. So this will take it to 10 students. They're 6-month programs, so it's 5 at a time. So at least a doubling of activity. So that would be a good one to add to our site visit so we can understand how they're going to support it.
Right, another Unloop question. I'm trying to work together. 10 internships for $100,000 in 1 year. How sustain this so that it's not a one-shot project? Okay, I think it's a question about sustainability, if I'm getting that right.
Yes, another good site visit question. And this is a really new organization. They just started in 2016. So they are definitely in startup growth mode. and are evolving their offerings. So we do have some execution questions to talk through. Yeah.
Okay. No more questions for Luke. Actually, no more education questions unless someone else texts a new one. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, got another on Luke question. Hilarious. What kind of funding are they getting from the tech industry? Curiousness about funding internships with tech partners. Do you want to speak to that?
Oh, my finance person is not here today. What was the do you remember the name of that program?
Well, they have a number of tech,
Social venture partners.
oh, yes, they have a social venture partners grant that they're using to help them with their infrastructure and their, strength as an organization. But they also have a number of tech partners who are providing these opportunities. And I think that that is a long-term funding strategy for them as well as placement for their graduates.
Thank you. And then move on to questions for the health group. Aren't you over here? You want to stand? Okay. Question about Elizabeth Gregory Home. And the curiosity is around the relationship between Elizabeth Gregory Home and the Lutheran Church.
Here. Who would like to take it? Come on over.
What we understand is that the Lutheran Church has pretty much donated the space that they are participating in. They also have a home where at least 8 individual women can live in for up to 2 years at a time, which isn't really involved in this request. Really, the request is to keep the facility open for the extra day, the Sunday, but the relationship with the church is the church to help them open their doors.
So I think that sort of answers another question that was about Elizabeth Gregory Home. So the proposal is to help them stay open on Sunday. So it's a question I hope that answers whoever asked that question. Okay. Stick around here. Sort through these. Another health question for you about Sierra Sisters. Is there a plan described in the proposal to increase the funding and infrastructure beyond our grant? Who would like to speak to that?
It's my responsibility.
That's a group that can help you.
Yeah. And so I don't know if they, what would you guys, as to for the 2 years, they were going to hire, I think a new executive director or someone to kind of bridge it. Yes, right.
The plan was to make a plan.
Right, and they also have had the name of this organization that, well, let me mention this. They have, they've been working with a nonprofit assistance center, the NAC, which is funded through United Way of King County, to develop a 3 to 5 year sustainability plan. And so, and they've been working with them for at least a couple years now. So they're getting some good guidance.
All right.
Well, the other little bit just from here was that the 3 years is to grow and transform the organization from being all volunteer to having a paid ED because Bridget doesn't get paid. And she's getting older, so that they're looking for the future for that and a volunteer coordinator.
There are plans underway. Okay, Somali Health Board question for you. So I think there's confusion around the coalition. So did the Somali Health Board organize the coalition, or are they just part of the coalition that you mentioned?
I hope I'm getting that question right.
So I think the Somali Health Board organized the coalition, so they identified where they saw a need in other community groups were having similar problems, and then they were maybe organically or socially identified as having a reputable model for disseminating information, and they received a grant to formalize the coalition so that they could be a leader in disseminating information and a framework for
corresponding with their communities and providing services.
Okay.
Does that answer?
I think that answers it, but I didn't ask a question. If it didn't, text me again, we'll get back to it. Okay, I'm gonna come back up front. I think that's it for health. Thank you, health. All right. Let's go to environment.
Oh, that's us.
All right. So, question around Dot Green. Curiosity around the size of the staff and how many paid full-time employees. Does anyone know?
I think it's 8. Would it go all the way back there?
It will go most of the way.
Okay.
I believe it's 8 people, full-time staff, which is why I said they were small.
Great. Yeah, we don't need more than that. All right, there is a question about the role of Dot Green in the Superfund dredging project, which is the Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition. I'm not sure that they work together. Maybe you know something about that?
I do not know,
We don't know.
but they do a lot of coalition work with other groups in Seattle, so very possible.
Very possible. Hollis has an idea.
Excellent.
My understanding reading their material is that they started out as a citizen advisory board to the Superfund project of Duwamish. I'm so sorry, the wrong one.
They do a lot of amazing and similar work, it seems, in the environment groups, which is so great to have alignment. Let me find one. I think there was one more. Question?
We did such a good job, there's probably not.
Okay, I think that's it for you all. Thank
you're
you very
right
much.
there.
All right, for human services, I don't know if I can make it back to you. It's as far as we can make it. You can come to me. On Chief Seattle Club, how much money has been raised so far, and what's the construction and development timeline?
Do you mind coming over? We can make sure everyone can hear. Oh, Aki is making miracles.
They've split this up into 2 parts. The, one part is has a $10 million fund, and that's the one that's going out to the public. The rest of the money is through tax rebates and other government grants.
So one thing I want to say is they had a survey done before they started, and they had a very reputable firm go out and figure out. I talked to different organizations, and so they feel very strongly that they're going to be able to get the money because they've done the groundwork ahead of time. So they're not as far along as you would like, but maybe they've got Gates Foundation and Medina and a lot of other very big funders who are behind them and have done.
I believe they've raised, I think they have $4 million left of the $10 million, and the $10 million is what the Western Wings Foundation people have covered. But they're also, they prioritized, I'll speak to it, the money coming from governmental organizations, and they're like number 1 and number 2, they're actually ranked as to whether or not their chances of getting money. And what Laura was referring to, the feasibility study where they went and interviewed foundations and name it, and they said there's not going to be a problem with them raising $10 million. It's a big jump for them, though.
So I think that answers part of this question, but stick around for just a second here. Do you know what percentage are going to fund as far as the Chief Seattle Club project?
No, I don't know the percentage.
No, we don't know the percentage. That is a question. Not very much of a $10 million budget. Let's see. All those. Yeah. Okay. We have a lot of good questions. For Casa Latina, that's you all, yes? Have they identified a location for their expansion into South King County? And, are they hoping to get some more funding before they do it? A little more on that, I think, generally.
Those are actually 2 site visit questions that we had written down. They have identified South King County, but they didn't specify a location.
And they also said that they were looking at funders specifically targeting South Kent County.
Thank you. I love that we all think alike, huh? Same site visit questions. I think that's it for you all. I'm gonna come back up. Arts and culture, some questions for your team. Making it easy for me here. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me as we try this new tech here. On Coyote Central, there's some questions around the percentage of people of color participants. 60% during the school year, but only 45% in the summer. And how do they screen the 850 summer program waiting list to ensure that a minority population is being served? A couple hard-hitting questions.
I'm not a specialist, but they do, for example, they know that people from more affluent families get their applications in earlier, so they deliberately held back over a third of the spots in order to encourage and get those out to the underserved schools, et cetera. So that's sort of an example of how they redistribute. In terms of the numbers, the ones they 58 to 60% during the year, 44% in summer. Perhaps it's just more accessible for families in more affluent areas to get kids there during summertime, but they go through quite an extensive role to get these youth of color in, from full scholarships to anybody else have ideas, or locating in places that are right on transit routes.
Thank you both. For the Marley's Place team, here you are, Carol. Could you talk a little bit about the cultural piece of what they do, the cultural element? I don't have firsthand knowledge of that, but I have seen videos that they did on YouTube, and they showed Hispanic costumes and dances. That's all I know. Good site visit question.
Well, one of the things that did impress us was the quality of the costumes, the props, when the instruments for their music programs, that they really are a very, very high level, given how tiny this organization is.
Okay, thank you. On the Delridge Neighborhood Development Association, someone noted that this was on the ballot or on the site visit slate last year. So there's a question of this, if this is the same request, and if so, how's the status of the campaign evolved from last year? Thanks, Jim.
It's basically the same request. I don't know if it's identical, but it's certainly the same challenge. And in addition to the Seattle Housing $500,000 grant, they're approaching, or maybe they're just reaching $1 million on the $2 million goal in the quiet phase. So they are picking up other grants and gifts, so they're a good halfway there already.
Last year, as part of the site visit, we asked them how our 100,000 would figure in that. And they do have a very phased program so that they can attack different pieces of that and match their funding to that particular piece. So they're pretty flexible in terms of how they're going to use the money as it carries.
Thank you, Arts team. All right, I'm gonna loop my way back around to the front. There are more questions, but we don't have time. So here's what I would encourage you to do. Talk to each other and ask those questions that you still have at our reception. What do you say? Okay. There was one question about who was on the ballot before and who received a grant before, which I could just tell you. So the Duwamish River Cleanup Coalition, one of our environment groups, did receive a grant in 2010. I think it was around $80,000. It wasn't a full $100,000 at that time in our history. And then last year, Denise Louie Education Center was on the ballot and did not receive the grant. And Delridge Neighborhood Development Association received a site visit, and I don't believe they were on the ballot. So that's that history. Carrie.
Friends of Youth was funded a long time ago.
Friends of Youth was funded a long time ago. This is Friends of the Children, though.
Oh, no, Friends of the
Friends with children. We have a lot of friends. So before we move on to our delightful spread that Morgan has prepared for us, we are going to take a quick photo, so stay right there. Aki wants to capture your smiling faces.
I'm gonna pull a bit of Aurora right now. I won't give up a little for something, I promise. Let's see, okay, we might have to do it in halves, so. All right, so you guys get just to like wave to the camera. On the count of 3, ready? Susan, wave, I see you in the back.
Show me an inspired face. I love it. Learning.
1, 2, 3. Great, okay, now over this side. Right.
Inspired. Quashnet Women's Foundation is the best place on earth.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, so stick around for reception on this side of the room. Unfortunately, we need to turn over that side of the room for another amazing nonprofit ventures, our neighbors in this building. So come on this side of the room, enjoy some snacks, and thank you again to everyone for your excellent presentations today.